Ladies and gentlemen, Black Knight looks so cool, and I gotta have him, even though he's gonna be free in under a week. If you guys haven't been clocking this in the token event, there's gonna be a Savage Avengers token, not that one. There's gonna be a Savage Avengers token, and you're gonna be able to exchange tokens to unlock him, and then use rank up tickets on him like every other premium character. But I didn't want to wait, and I didn't want to gamble with the chest, so I just got the bio sub. This would be the way to get him ahead of the event. However, the bio sub actually has less value than ever because, I mean, it doesn't have zero value. It still has some value for sure. And particularly for the very newest characters like, you know, the Hood, US Agent, Leader, and now your boy Black Knight. Boom. There you go. There is value. But there is less value than ever because of the new Dimension mission changes. And I already covered this in a video, but I just wanted to highlight it one more time for you guys. With all of the characters being added, there was an old piece of advice that is no longer relevant as of this update. And the piece of advice was basically, oh, you know, if you're like a low-spending player and you're thinking about getting a BIOS subscription for one of the new characters that you want to unlock, let's say Black Knight, for example, you can get it and then just use the other 29 days to choose other characters and unlock a bunch of premium characters. And then at least you'll have them all unlocked at 1 star, and then you can use rank up tickets on them later when they get reworks, tier 4, etc. Sound familiar? Yeah, that doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, it still does help, and it still does speed things along, obviously, because boom, 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 you can just unlock 30 characters in 30 days. That's really cool for like whatever, $12 Canadian, $10 US, probably like $100 in euros because of the increase in price. But for those of you who are ultra low spenders and were thinking about doing that, it's less valuable now, because now most of the characters, besides the few that I highlighted, are actually just completely free now. Now, obviously, completely free is a bit of a flexible phrasing. You have to re-roll for the character. You have to want that character that you re-roll for, and then you have to spend the energy. For example, Yelena was added recently. Now I have to go and I have to spend the energy, and I have to actually try and get Yelena. And I might not. I might not get her bios at all. I might just get a bunch of Red Skull and Ant-Man and Warpath, sure. But you can do this. So while the bio sub still has value, for sure, the bio subscription, it certainly has less value than before. But here we go. I really like Black Knight. I think he's really cool. It's a bit of a shame that he can't be taken to tier 4, but I do want to get him juiced up for tier 3 at least, because he is essentially America Chavez. And I think that's really cool. So you do want to use rank up tickets on him because he's a premium character. You're not going to be able to farm his bios consistently. So you do need to spend the, you know, the rank up tickets there. I'm just going to speed things up and use a mega rank up ticket. You guys have seen this video plenty of times, this sort of format. So I'm not going to bother with all of the, you know, the usual details, as it were, because all of this stuff is pretty straightforward. But yeah, from here, you would just use a first potential realization ticket. You can use a superior. I'm not going to. I'm just going to run him through World Boss as a striker and try to unlock his potential. It takes like 2 days max. I'm pretty sure you can only hit 50% or 100%, so it's super duper fast. All right, there we go, and we get his potential in 1 shot. So it's super duper easy. I highly recommend not using those tickets unless you're really, really desperate. In particular, the superior ones you don't want to use because they can be used on, I believe, native tier 2s and native tier 3s. Let me just double check that, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, it can be used on native tier 3s. That's where you want to save them for. Don't use them on native tier 1s. We're going to bring him up now. Oh, we have a perfect. We have a ticket, so we can speed this up, get to the meat and bones of the video. The meat and the bones, whatever. You know, get into the meat of it. There we go. And then we can tier 3 him. Let's go, dude. Level up all these skills. As far as the skills go, this is one of the aspects of the usual character reviews that I actually still really enjoy. You do want to level up 5 for the max heal. You do want to level up 4 for the max frenzy buff. And then I believe you also want to level up 3 for the accumulation buff, because it doubles the accumulation. But you can actually save on 1 and 2. And I actually like saying this because it's a lot of gold. You know, in Black Knight's case, it's 2 million gold, not having to level up Ebony Blade Thrust and Ebony Blade Strike. It's literally all the same words. But it's just one character. So it's 2 million gold just for him. And then for other characters, it's a bunch more gold, right? You can literally save hundreds of millions of gold, excuse me, by not doing that. By just not leveling up, you know, most characters' first skills and then some characters' second skills. Usually, the way that they've designed characters, at least the past few years, 3, 4, and 5 all have buffs that scale. It's funny, they didn't used to do that when the game first came out. They used to have the buff at the same level for level 1 as it was for level 6. But then I guess they caught on to the fact that players weren't leveling up the skills and saving a bunch of gold, and they wanted more gold sinks. Because without putting a curse on the game, that's actually one of the few things that I think could have many more sinks is the gold sinks. And sinks are just basically events or things in game, event like progression steps, etc., that require you to use gold. There are resource sinks for pretty much everything else in massive quantities that help to deplete your resources so that you're then, you're hungry to grind, you're hungry to spend money and go in the shop and buy things. The Elite Gear, for example, introduced a new resource sink for old materials that caused boomers like me to panic because we were selling Dimension Debris and selling gear up kits when we had over 6 digits worth. Maybe in the future there will be a new, resource sink for the Norn Stones. As you can see, we're closing in on 250,000 each. But yeah, I feel like gold still could use more resource sinks. We do have a ticket here. We're going to pop the level 6 ticket. Believe it or not, I had one in my inventory. I really like Black Knight, so we're going to go ahead and use that on him. And then we're going to roll his set, fix all this up, and then talk about why I think he's a worthwhile addition to your roster. Gear all squared away. We've got a bunch of physical attack Uru there, and we've got stage 12 Power of Angry Hulk here. It's time to hit the tier 3 on this cat and see what his stats look like, what the tier 3 animation looks like. It's just the tier 3 skill. His tier 3 skill is really sick, though. With the sword, the cursed sword, yeah, it looks absolutely sick. So I'm pretty excited about that. 50,000 HP is not bad at all. His defenses are a little low for a tier 3. That's okay. 50,000 HP is pretty nice, though. Yeah, he does have a juicy HP stat. I'd say his stats are decent. Some people were saying his stats were low. If you go over to the Marvel Universe tab and you take a look at a quick comparison between, let's say, Black Knight and, I don't know, Gladiator, let's just say. Black Knight has just under 14,000 physical attack, 9,200 physical defense, 8,300 energy defense, and then 45,500. So if you remember 13,9, 92, 83, 45. Then we go over to Gladiator, I'm choosing him because he's also a combat type, but then I'm also choosing Gladiator because he's a native tier 2. That's a pretty important one here. If you see here at tier 3, 70, he's got a bit more physical attack, 14,600 instead of 13,900. So he does have about 700 more physical attack, but then he actually has less physical defense, less energy defense, and less HP. So believe it or not, Black Knight does have 3 out of 4 stats, of those 4 stats at least, higher than Gladiator. And having less attack is a little bit worse, but I was as shocked as some of you might be to find out that he actually has really good base stats for a no uniform tier 3. And I know it's a bit of copium this early in the morning, but I'm really excited for when he gets a tier 4 and they give him a uniform, because I think he's going to pop off quite well. And I just love the medieval aesthetic. I think it's one of the best in Marvel Future Fight, and it looks really good. As far as his rotation goes, it's pretty straightforward. He is proc friendly if you wanted to play him with a proc. And you can do just 3, 4, slight delay into 5. You need that slight delay for the red ground to appear so that you can get the full 75 to 77 hits. If you don't delay 4 like I'm about to do, then you don't get that red ground, and then you don't get those extra hits. And then you just get the hits from 5. 3, unfortunately, is a counter skill that only does 6 hits when you don't get countered. So it's not really worth waiting on. Technically, you can cancel 5 into 4. The tornado shows up right away, and then you would just let 4 play out, but you do get 15 fewer hits. So there's really no reason to do that. You just have to delay 4 a tiny bit. You don't have to wait for him to slam the sword down the way he does like that. You don't have to wait for that. You just have to wait a brief second. It's just that. As soon as he kind of does that with the sword, it's like a half second, maybe a full second almost, then you're done. When you have the tier 3 available, it's the same thing, and then you just cancel 5 into 6, and you see one of the coolest animations in the game. Blow! And he just obliterates enemies for a cool 120 hits. So it adds about 45 hits to his combo. Now, despite him being proc friendly, I know a lot of you are watching with skepticism saying, Alex, I don't really care. I'm not going to be playing as Black Knight, as cool as he looks. I want another reason to use him on my roster. Well, it's certainly not the leadership, but it is the Protection of the Lady of the Lake passive. We talked about this in the patch notes. This is a very, very strong passive, particularly for PvP, because not only does it give 40% HP to all allies, which is similar to Beast's new uniforms effect, which is crazy that it's competing with that, but it also gives all allies 50% decreased damage received from all Reflect. So whether they're taking Reflect from Silver Surfer, from Shala Ball, from Luke Cage, doesn't matter who it's from, Ancient One, you can reduce that incoming Reflect damage by 50%. This is massive, and you can only see it in 2 other places in the game. There are only 2 other characters in the game that have a buff like that applies to all allies. Certain characters have it for themselves, like Juggernaut and like Mephisto, but there are very, very few characters who give it to their allies. The first one is Molecule Man, and you can understand by the comparison with how expensive Molecule Man is. It's pretty crazy that a brand new character that is sort of free gives you that ability. So you can see there he has that effect on his passive, but no HP. So technically, Black Knight has a better support passive than Molecule Man. Yeah, that's crazy. The only other character that has it, to my knowledge, is America Chavez, and hers requires you to buy the uniform. So without the uniform, you can see, or even with, I believe, the classic uniform, she does not have this ability. But when you switch over to Doctor Strange 2, no, never mind. It's on her uniform effect. When you switch over to, the newest uniform, she does have the 40% increased HP and the decreased Reflect. You can see here on this old one, she doesn't have one. She just applies it to herself rather to all allies. Now, although this uniform is 3 years old, so that does mean there could have been power creep from then until now, I can kind of give the devs a pass this time because this is a uniform. While America Chavez is a free-to-play character, she's available from regular bio selectors. You can get in Shadowland. You do have to fork over 1,000 crystals to get a uniform that is going to give you this effect. So that's basically the biggest reason to use or to build up Black Knight, in my opinion, is that you can basically save yourself the 1,000 crystals by just building him up instead, as long as you have, of course, the rank up tickets. And there's a good chance that he'll be as good or better than America Chavez. She also has a counterattack iframe ignore skill, but he is a newer character. He's 3 years more recent than America Chavez, so he should perform better. And again, just for your just for your own clarification, if you go over to Team Battle Arena, you take a look at Challenger, you take a look at Vibranium, a lot of the teams are actually using, maybe not in Vibranium, but in Challenger, a lot of the teams are going to be using America Chavez to give Reflect reduction, whether it's a mirror match Silver Surfer trying to get Reflect reduction, or they're using America Chavez on another team to give a different character Reflect reduction, like Sentry or somebody else like that. So it is being used by some of the best teams. This player here has it on Null. So yeah, it is not a rare effect that, or not a useless effect, I should say. It is a rare effect, but it's not useless at all. But let's see now how Black Knight performs, first with no build, with no Obelisk, I should say, and then we'll go ahead and give him a proc to see how that does. Now, a tier 3 without an Obelisk might not make sense for some of you, but the reason for this testing is pretty straightforward. If you were to give him a support build, you could still go ahead and use him, although this is a low stage of Null, in this case 24, you could still comfortably use him and not, worry about struggling to complete the stage if it's something you wanted to do. Now, I know this doesn't appeal to all types of players. There's obviously the hugely competitive players who wouldn't even think of playing Null anymore. But for those of you who don't mind, this gives you an idea that, with double support here, and in this case, it happens to be tier 4 Nick Fury, but you wouldn't need him to be tier 4. You wouldn't even need the newest uniform. He can comfortably clear this stage 24. Now, we're not going to be able to... Not a lot of burst damage there. We're not going to be able to pop the tier 3 to get the iframe ignore. But we can pop it on the next rotation here to comfortably push him to the next phase. So yeah, very, very easy here. So like simulating him here without an Obelisk is the same as simulating him with, if I gave him like an Insight, excuse me, or a Liberation. That would be the same kind of the same kind of build that you're seeing now, because you would have the overlap So you wouldn't be double dipping on Insight, and so it would be the same as if I wasn't using an Insight on, let's say, Nick Fury, and I instead had one on Black Knight. And the reason why I point out the defensive build, the support build, is because of the passive that we pointed out earlier, the Lady of the Lake. That is going to be I'd guess the primary way that a lot of people are going to engage with Black Knight is using that support and just building him as a support type for another character for PvP. So yeah, he comfortably completes that stage 24 in under 100 seconds. He would, fly through it literally on the horse with an Obelisk. And so let's find out how proc friendly he really is and how much harder he can hit with something like a 180 or a 200 proc Obelisk. Just for fun, that same stage 24 now with a 200 proc looks something like this. The initial rotation gives you a healthy 10 bars and change. And then after we dodge that, no, we're not gonna be able to dodge that. Oh no, we do. Hey, we get the proc with the 200 proc. Awesome. And we can push him. Nice. Okay, so 20-second phase 1 for the now 200 proc holding Black Knight. But on stage 9 of Kang, you can do something like this. Okay. Few bars there. Pop off with a tier 3. Yeah. His tier 3 is hard, dude. Yo, let's go. Can he tank it? Oh, he tanks the first laser. Co-op skill tanks the second laser. You love to see it. Very, very proc friendly. Super easy. And that's coming from a guy who routinely likes to miss procs on character showcase videos, where he's like, oh, he's definitely proc friendly. He tanks the slam too, which I'm probably going to die here to the second slam because I don't have my co-op skill up. There it is. But yo, he's only like 3 bars off getting through Kang stage 9 in like under a minute, I would say. So that's pretty nice. Obviously not meta. Like, gets, nothing tier 4 these days. Nothing that's not tier 4 these days is going to be meta. But I certainly can see him either being used alongside Chavez or even being used to replace Chavez. And I have to say that it's interesting and almost seems like the devs have a plan releasing a character like this with this kind of passive after releasing Shalabal and increasing the number of reflect characters that exist in the game. So I do find that quite interesting. Juggernaut as well for the Savage Avengers update does have his own personal reflect reduction on his passive. We pointed that one out here on Can't Stop Me, or no, it's on his, I always keep forgetting, man, it's on his uniform. Yeah, so he has that for himself, but then also Black Knight giving it to allies does seem like a sort of, call and answer of one meta to another. Not that Black Knight is meta, just that, if you need an answer to Silver Surfer and Shalabal and you're struggling, you're taking too much reflect damage, consider adding Black Knight as a support to your team. No, thank you. And consider giving him, in that case, a support build. So I would say something like a Mighty or a Brilliant CTP of Insight or Liberation would probably be your best bet to not only improve your allies' chances of survival, but make Black Knight a little bit tankier. As far as his artifact goes, I don't think it's really too relevant to his performance as a support. It does make him really tanky himself, but for right now, he's just not going to deal enough damage to be able to utilize this in a meaningful way. Now, if you get your hands on a 5 or 6 star version of it, I would absolutely keep it. I would probably equip it. This will be really good and does bode well for his future. So not to go like full, insane speculation, but they set him up really well. They gave him really good base stats. They gave him an Eye from Ignore counterattack skill. They gave him a really good support, and they gave him a pretty solid artifact. Now, it wasn't enough for X23 and Dakin. Ask them how they know. It didn't make them meta, but at the same time, only X23 got tier 4 anyways, right? Dakin wasn't even able to get to tier 4, and X23 is not too far away from being relevant. It's just that she has the typing holding her back, in addition to some less than stellar upgrades, the likes of which we've seen a ton of this year. So I'm pretty excited for Black Swordsman. I'll find some more reasons to use him and some more content to use him in, but certainly nothing too meta for the time being. But don't be surprised if you see him on a bunch of Team Battle Arena teams, basically replacing Chavez, as Reflect characters continue to pose a threat to everybody but the absolute top meta Sentry and Nulls. So yeah, that's the review for Black Knight. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching the video. Smash the like button if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.